The champagne flutes clink against each other in the living room of my parents' Buckhead home, the sound sharp and celebratory against the backdrop of my father's booming laughter. I'm standing in the kitchen doorway, still wearing my work clothes from the tech conference in downtown Atlanta, watching my family toast my brother Darius for winning his law school's regional debate competition. The scene feels like a Norman Rockwell painting of family pride, except I'm holding an envelope that contains news that should eclipse his achievement entirely. Have you ever been invisible while standing in plain sight, watching people celebrate mediocrity while your excellence goes unnoticed? The envelope in my hands contains my acceptance letter for the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship, a prestigious award that only 300 people receive out of 12,000 applicants nationwide. It comes with full funding for my PhD program at MIT, plus a living stipend and research budget. In academic circles, this is equivalent to winning an Oscar, but in my family's living room, it might as well be junk mail. "Tell the story again, son," Dad says, refilling Darius's wine glass with the expensive Bordeaux he reserves for special occasions. I want to hear about that final rebuttal that sealed the victory. Mom beams from her position on the leather sectional, her phone already out to capture more photos of their golden boy basking in familial adoration. Darius launches into his retelling of the debate, his voice animated with the confidence of someone who has never doubted his place in the family hierarchy. He describes his arguments about corporate tax policy with the precision of someone who genuinely believes his victory in a regional competition among 30 law students deserves the same celebration as a national achievement. My parents hang on every word, asking follow-up questions and requesting clarification about debate format and judging criteria. I clear my throat and step into the living room, the NSF letter still sealed in my hand. "Hey everyone, I actually have some news to share too." My voice cuts through Darius's story, and 3 faces turn toward me with the polite attention you'd give a child interrupting adult conversation. "Oh, that's nice, honey," Mom says, her tone warm but distracted. "Can it wait until after Darius finishes? We want to hear all the details about his debate strategy." She turns back to my brother with renewed focus, effectively dismissing me without actually acknowledging what I might have to say. The familiar sting of being secondary hits me in the chest, that hollow feeling I've carried since childhood when my straight A report cards were met with, "That's expected," while Darius's B+ achievements earned family dinners and congratulatory phone calls to relatives. I've learned to recognize this feeling as a warning sign that I'm about to be emotionally sidelined, but tonight it feels particularly sharp because the envelope in my hands represents the culmination of 6 years of research, publications, and academic excellence. "Actually, it's kind of time-sensitive," I persist, stepping closer to the seating area where my family has arranged themselves around Darius like he's holding court. "I received my decision letter from the National Science Foundation today." Dad glances at me briefly before turning back to Darius. "That's great, sweetheart. We'll definitely want to hear about it once we're done celebrating your brother's achievement. This debate win could really boost his profile for the summer associate positions he's applying for." He raises his glass again, and Mom immediately follows suit, leaving me standing there with my unopened letter like a forgotten party guest. This is the moment I realize I need to document what's happening, not because I want to build a case against my family, but because I'm starting to question my own perception of these interactions. Am I being overly sensitive about the timing, Or is there a pattern here that I've been too close to see clearly? The weight of the NSF fellowship letter in my hands feels symbolic, evidence of my worth that my family can't seem to recognize even when it's literally right in front of them. I retreat to the kitchen and sit at the breakfast bar, listening to the continued celebration in the next room while I carefully open the envelope that could change my entire career trajectory. The letter begins with "Congratulations" and outlines funding that will cover the next 4 years of my doctoral studies, but reading it alone in the kitchen while my family toasts my brother's regional debate win feels like a metaphor for my entire relationship with them. My phone buzzes with a text from my advisor at Georgia Tech. "Zara, just heard the news through department channels. NSF Fellowship. This is incredible. Only 3 people from our program have ever received this. We need to celebrate." His excitement, transmitted through pixels on a screen, feels more validating than the champagne celebration happening 20 feet away from me. The contrast isn't lost on me. Dr. Martinez, who has known me for 2 years, immediately recognizes the significance of this achievement and wants to celebrate. My family, who has known me for 30 years, can't pause their celebration of a regional debate win long enough to hear about a national fellowship that will fund my entire doctoral education. I screenshot Dr. Martinez's text and save it in a new photo album on my phone labeled Recognition. I take a picture of the NSF letter, the champagne celebration visible in the background. For the first time, I'm documenting the disparity between what I achieve and how my family responds. It feels both necessary and deeply sad. The next morning arrives with the disorienting feeling of waking up in an alternate reality where major life achievements evaporate overnight. I'm sitting at my desk in the sleek downtown Atlanta offices of Meridian Analytics, staring at my computer screen where 17 congratulatory emails from colleagues, professors, and professional contacts have accumulated since yesterday's NSF announcement. The disconnect between this outpouring of recognition and my family's complete dismissal feels like emotional whiplash. "Zara, I heard about the fellowship." My colleague Marcus approaches my cubicle with genuine excitement, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "NSF Graduate Research Fellowship, that's huge. My sister applied for that 3 times and never got it. You're basically academic royalty now." He sets 1 cup on my desk and perches on the edge of my workspace, his enthusiasm infectious despite my lingering disappointment from last night. "Thanks, Marcos." It still feels surreal, I admit, accepting the coffee gratefully. The warmth spreads through my hands as I inhale the rich aroma, grounding me in this moment of recognition that feels more real than anything that happened in my parents' living room. "Are you kidding? This is celebration worthy. We should get the whole team together for drinks after work." Marcus pulls out his phone, already texting other colleagues. "I'm thinking that new rooftop bar in Midtown. You deserve the VIP treatment." So the irony hits me like a physical sensation. My work colleagues, people I've known for less than 2 years, immediately understand the significance of this achievement and want to celebrate. My family, who raised me and supposedly knows me better than anyone, couldn't be bothered to pause their existing celebration long enough to acknowledge it. My phone buzzes with a text from Mom. "Honey, could you pick up those photos from Walgreens on your way home? The ones from Darius's debate competition. I want to get them framed for the hallway." No mention of my fellowship. No follow-up questions about the news I tried to share last night. Just a request to help commemorate my brother's achievement while mine continues to exist in radio silence. That afternoon, I find myself doing something I've never done before. I start paying attention to family communication patterns with the methodical approach I use for data analysis at work. I scroll through our family group chat, examining months of messages with the clinical detachment of a researcher looking for correlations. The pattern that emerges is devastating in its consistency. Every achievement Darius mentions, passing the bar exam prep course, getting an interview for summer associate positions, even finishing a challenging class, generates immediate responses from both parents. Congratulations, questions about details, suggestions for celebration. My achievements: publishing a research paper in a peer-reviewed journal, presenting at the International Machine Learning Conference, receiving the Outstanding Graduate Student Award from Georgia Tech, received delayed responses or generic thumbs-up emojis. I screenshot the conversation threads and save them in a growing folder on my phone. The visual evidence is more damning than my emotional recollections because it removes the possibility that I'm misremembering or being overly sensitive. The data doesn't lie. Darius's accomplishments generate an average of 4.3 family responses within 6 hours, while mine generate 1.2 responses within 24 to 48 hours. When you start measuring love through response rates and emoji usage, you know something fundamental has broken in your family dynamic. But what strikes me isn't just the numerical disparity, it's the qualitative difference. Darius's achievements are discussed with curiosity and pride. Mine are acknowledged with obligation and moved past quickly. The breaking point comes that evening when I arrive at my parents' house to deliver the photos Mom requested. The hallway that leads to their living room has been transformed into a shrine to Darius's accomplishments: framed photos from his debate competition, his law school graduation portrait, certificates from various academic honors, and newspaper clippings from his college achievements. The display is museum quality, professionally matted and lit with picture lights Dad installed specifically for this purpose. I stand in that hallway, surrounded by evidence of my parents' pride in my brother, and realize that none of my achievements are represented anywhere in their home. Not my undergraduate summa cum laude graduation, not my Georgia Tech Outstanding Student Award, not my research conference presentations, and certainly not my NSF fellowship letter, which they still haven't asked to see. The absence feels intentional now, not accidental. It's not that they forgot to display my accomplishments, it's that they never considered them display-worthy in the first place. Standing in that hallway of Darius's glory, I finally understand that the problem isn't my perception or sensitivity. The problem is that my family has fundamentally different standards for measuring achievement, and those standards consistently favor my brother over me. I take a photo of the hallway display and add it to my documentation folder. Then I text my colleague Marcus. Yes to celebration drinks. I think I finally understand what I'm actually celebrating. So, 3 weeks of systematic documentation later, I'm sitting in my apartment in Virginia Highland, surrounded by printouts that look like evidence for a psychological research study. The coffee table in front of me holds family photos, screenshots of social media posts, and a spreadsheet that tracks 7 years of family achievements and corresponding responses. What started as emotional validation seeking has become a comprehensive analysis that reveals patterns I couldn't have imagined. The most damning evidence sits in neat piles organized by category: Darius achievements and family response versus Zara achievements and family response. The contrast is so stark it could be used as a case study in differential treatment. Darius's pile includes family dinner celebrations, social media posts from both parents, extended family congratulations, and detailed documentation of every milestone from high school through law school. My pile contains perfunctory acknowledgments, delayed responses, and a conspicuous absence of any social media celebration. I've created a timeline that spans from my high school valedictorian speech through my NSF fellowship, cross-referenced with Darius's achievements during the same period. The pattern that emerges is breathtaking in its consistency. When we both achieve something in the same time frame, Darius's accomplishment receives immediate family attention, while mine is either minimized or ignored entirely. Senior year of high school, I was valedictorian with a 4.0 GPA and early admission to Georgia Tech with a full merit scholarship. Darius made varsity basketball as a backup player. Guess which one got the family celebration dinner and newspaper clipping saved on the refrigerator? My graduation speech was attended by my parents, who spent the reception talking to other families about Darius's athletic potential for college recruiting. College graduation. I graduated summa cum laude with a double major in computer science and mathematics, plus a research thesis that was selected for publication. Darius graduated with a 3.2 GPA in political science and got accepted to one law school. My parents flew to Athens for his graduation celebration weekend, but attended mine for exactly 2 hours before driving back for Darius's farewell party with his college friends. Graduate school acceptance. I received full funding for my master's program at Georgia Tech with a research assistantship in machine learning. Darius got into law school with partial scholarships and student loans. My parents celebrated his law school acceptance with a weekend trip to Savannah. My graduate school funding was acknowledged with, "That's nice, honey," during a phone call. The social media analysis is particularly revealing. I create a document showing every Facebook and Instagram post my parents have made about their children's achievements over the past 3 years. Darius appears in 14 celebratory posts with detailed captions about his dedication and hard work. I appear in 3 posts, all group family photos where my achievements are mentioned as afterthoughts in captions primarily focused on other family news. My phone rings, interrupting my documentation session, and Mom's name appears on the screen. "Hi, honey, how are you doing?" Her voice carries that casual warmth that feels increasingly hollow given what I've been discovering about our family dynamics. "I'm good, Mom. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something." I look down at the evidence spread across my coffee table, feeling both nervous and determined. I've been thinking about the NSF fellowship, and I realized you never actually asked me about the details. It's a pretty significant achievement, and I was hoping we could celebrate it somehow. There's a pause that stretches long enough for me to hear the television in the background. "Oh, sweetie, of course we're proud of you. You know that. We just figured you'd let us know if you wanted to do something special." Her tone is patient but slightly strained, as if I'm requesting something unreasonable. "But when Darius won his debate competition, you immediately planned a celebration dinner and called Aunt Patricia to share the news. You posted about it on Facebook the same day." The comparison hangs in the air between us, and I can practically hear her mental gears shifting as she processes my observation. "That's different, Zara. Darius specifically asked us to celebrate, and his achievement was more accessible to understand. Not everyone knows what your science fellowship means, but everyone can appreciate winning a debate. Her explanation reveals more than she probably intended, that my achievements are somehow too complex or specialized to warrant the same enthusiasm. Mom, the NSF Fellowship is more competitive than any debate Darius has ever won. 300 people out of 12,000 applicants. It's funding my entire PhD at MIT. My voice stays calm, but I can feel my heart rate increasing as I advocate for my own accomplishment to my own mother. Well, of course it's wonderful, honey. We're very proud, but you've always been so independent and focused on your career. We figured you didn't need the same kind of validation that Darius does. The word validation hits me like a diagnosis. She's essentially admitting that they provide different levels of recognition based on their perception of our emotional needs, not the objective merit of our achievements. After we hang up, I sit in my quiet apartment, looking at the evidence that confirms what I've suspected but never wanted to acknowledge. My family operates with fundamentally different standards for measuring my worth versus my brother's worth. They've convinced themselves that because I'm academically successful, I don't need or deserve the same level of celebration and recognition that they automatically provide for his lesser achievements. I add Mom's explanations to my documentation file and realize I'm building more than just evidence. I'm building the courage to demand better treatment from people who should be my biggest supporters. The moment of truth arrives on a Sunday morning in November, wrapped in the deceptive normalcy of family brunch at my parents' Buckhead home. I'm sitting at their dining room table, watching Dad serve Belgian waffles while Mom arranges fresh flowers in a crystal vase, when Darius arrives with news that will test everything I've learned about our family dynamics over the past month of documentation. "I have an announcement," Darius says, settling into his usual chair with the confident smile of someone who has never doubted his reception. "I got the summer associate position at Henderson and Associates. It's the most competitive program in Atlanta, only 12 spots out of over 400 applicants." The response is immediate and overwhelming. Dad sets down the waffle plate and pulls Darius into a bear hug. Mom claps her hands together with genuine delight, and within minutes they're discussing celebration plans, salary details, and the long-term career implications of this opportunity. I watch the familiar choreography of family pride unfold while calculating the bitter mathematics of achievement recognition in my head. 12 spots out of 400 applicants. That's a 3% acceptance rate. Impressive, certainly, but not as competitive as my NSF Fellowship's 2.5% acceptance rate. Yet, here we are, witnessing the same celebration playbook that my family never opened for my achievement. The pattern is so predictable, I could script the next 30 minutes, photos for social media, calls to extended family, and detailed questions about every aspect of Darius's success. "Zara, isn't this exciting?" Mom turns to me with expectant eyes, clearly anticipating my participation in the celebration ritual. "Your brother is going to be working at one of the most prestigious firms in the city. This is my moment. I've spent weeks building evidence, understanding patterns, and preparing for this exact scenario." "It's great news," I say, and I mean it genuinely. "Congratulations, Darius. That's a competitive program." I pause, feeling the weight of what I'm about to say. It actually reminds me of my NSF fellowship announcement from last month. Similar acceptance rates, similar prestige in our respective fields. The temperature in the room shifts subtly. Dad's enthusiastic expression becomes more guarded, Mom's smile takes on a forced quality, and Darius looks confused about why I'm drawing comparisons during his moment. Well, yes, both are nice achievements, Mom says carefully, clearly sensing that this conversation is heading somewhere she'd prefer to avoid. But let's focus on celebrating Darius right now. There will be plenty of time to discuss your fellowship later. When? The question comes out sharper than I intended, but I'm tired of later that never comes. When will there be time to discuss my fellowship? Because it's been 6 weeks and we still haven't had that conversation. Meanwhile, we're planning celebrations for Darius's news before he's even finished sharing the details. Dad sets down his coffee cup with deliberate care. Zara, what's gotten into you? We're proud of your fellowship. We've told you that multiple times, but you're being inappropriate by making this about you when we're celebrating your brother. I'm not making this about me, Dad. I'm pointing out that you've never celebrated my achievements with the same enthusiasm you're showing right now. I pull out my phone and open the photo album I've carefully curated over the past month. I've been documenting our family's response patterns to achievements, and I think you should see what I've found. The silence that follows is profound. 3 pairs of eyes stare at me with expressions ranging from confusion to irritation to something that might be fear. I realize they've never been confronted with objective evidence of their differential treatment, and they're not sure how to respond. You've been documenting us? Darius asks, his voice carrying a note of betrayal. Like we're subjects in some kind of experiment? That's weird, Zara. Really weird. What's weird is that I had to document it to convince myself I wasn't imagining the disparity, I reply, scrolling through screenshots of family text conversations. Look at this. Your law school acceptance generated 17 family messages within 4 hours. My NSF fellowship got 3 responses over 2 days, and one of them was asking me to pick up your debate photos. Mom's face flushes pink. We don't need to see your research project, Zara. We know we love both of you equally. The fact that you've been keeping score like this suggests you might need to talk to someone about these feelings. The gaslighting attempt is so textbook, I almost admire its efficiency. Turn my legitimate concerns into evidence of my psychological instability. Make my documentation seem pathological rather than necessary. But I've prepared for this response because I've learned to recognize their deflection patterns. I'd love to talk to someone about these feelings, I say calmly. In fact, I think we should all talk to someone about these patterns, because what I've documented isn't feelings, it's data. And the data shows that this family consistently provides different levels of recognition and celebration based on gender, not merit. The accusation lands like a stone in still water, sending ripples of discomfort through the room. I've named what we've all been dancing around for years, and there's no taking it back now. That's a serious accusation, Zara, Dad says slowly. And frankly, it's hurtful. We've supported your education, celebrated your achievements, and encouraged your career. To suggest that we favor Darius because he's male is not only wrong but insulting to our values as parents. Then prove it, I say, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. Show me the social media posts celebrating my achievements. Show me the family photos from my graduation celebrations. Show me evidence that my accomplishments have received the same attention and recognition that Darius's have. The challenge hangs in the air like smoke, impossible to ignore but uncomfortable to breathe. For the first time in 30 years, I've asked my family to account for their treatment of me with the same rigor they'd expect in any other relationship. The silence that follows tells me everything I need to know about their ability to meet that challenge. The family meeting that follows 3 days later feels like a trial where everyone has prepared opening statements, but no one wants to be the defendant. We're sitting in my parents' formal living room, the space reserved for serious conversations and holiday photos, and the tension is thick enough to measure. Dad has printed out what appears to be his own counter-documentation. Mom sits with her hands folded in her lap like she's preparing for an unpleasant medical procedure, and Darius keeps checking his phone as if he has somewhere more important to be. "Before we start," Dad says, adjusting his reading glasses with the authority of someone chairing a board meeting, "I want to establish that this family has always been supportive of both our children's achievements. What we're addressing today are some misperceptions and hurt feelings that need to be cleared up. The language choice isn't accidental. Misperceptions and hurt feelings versus the patterns and data I've presented. He's framing this as my emotional problem rather than their behavioral issue. And I realize they've spent the past 3 days developing their defense strategy. I'd like to start by showing you what I've documented," I say, opening my laptop on the coffee table. The screen displays a side-by-side comparison of achievements and family responses that I've organized chronologically. This isn't about hurt feelings. This is about measurable differences in how achievements are recognized in this family. Mom leans forward slightly, studying the screen with the expression of someone trying to find flaws in an argument she doesn't want to accept. "Honey, we can't measure love and pride with spreadsheets. Family relationships don't work that way." Duh. "But celebration patterns do work that way," I reply, clicking to the social media analysis I've prepared. "Dad, you've posted about Darius's achievements 14 times in the past 3 years. You've posted about mine twice, and both times I was mentioned as an afterthought in posts primarily about other family events." Dad's defensive posture shifts slightly as he looks at the evidence on my screen. I can see him mentally calculating whether my numbers are accurate, and his expression suggests they are. "Social media isn't the measure of how proud we are, Zara. Some achievements are easier to explain to extended family and friends. Easier to explain, or more valued?" The question cuts through the room's carefully maintained politeness. "Because a national fellowship that funds 4 years of PhD study at MIT seems pretty straightforward to explain. But somehow Darius's regional debate win generated more social media celebration than my acceptance to one of the world's top graduate programs." Darius finally looks up from his phone, his expression annoyed. "Why are you doing this, Zara? What's the point of all this analysis and comparison? Are you trying to make Mom and Dad feel guilty for being proud of me?" "I'm trying to understand why your achievements are celebrated while mine are tolerated," I respond, turning to face him directly. "And I'm trying to figure out if you've noticed the difference or if it's so normalized that you think this is how all families operate." The question seems to catch him off guard. For the first time in this conversation, he looks genuinely thoughtful rather than defensive. I mean, you've always been the smart one. You don't need the same kind of encouragement I do. Your success is expected." There it is, the assumption that has been driving this disparity for years. My success is expected, therefore not celebration-worthy. His success is surprising, therefore deserving of fanfare. The logic is so fundamentally flawed, it takes my breath away. "Expected by whom?" I ask. "And why does meeting expectations disqualify me from recognition? Do you realize you just admitted that this family has different standards for measuring our worth?" Mom intervenes before Darius can respond, her voice taking on the soothing tone she uses when she wants to end uncomfortable conversations. Zara, we've always been proud of your intelligence and achievements, but you're independent and self-motivated. You don't seem to need external validation the way Darius does. How would you know what I need? The words come out louder than I intended, but I'm tired of having my emotional needs diagnosed and dismissed by people who have never bothered to ask about them. When have you ever asked what kind of recognition would be meaningful to me? When have you ever considered that maybe I wanted my family to be as excited about my MIT acceptance as you were about Darius's debate win? The silence that follows feels different from the earlier tensions. It's the quiet of people who are beginning to understand that they might have made assumptions that caused real harm. Dad removes his glasses and rubs his eyes. Mom's carefully composed expression begins to crack, and Darius looks genuinely uncomfortable for the first time since we sat down. I think, Dad says slowly, we may have made some mistakes in how we've approached celebrating your achievements. But that doesn't mean we love you less or value your success less. It means we misunderstood what you needed from us. Then help me understand, I say, clicking to a new slide that shows the celebration timelines. Help me understand why Darius's summer associate position announcement generated immediate celebration plans, while my NSF fellowship announcement was interrupted and never followed up on. Help me understand why the hallway at your house is a shrine to his achievements, while mine aren't represented anywhere in your home. The evidence is incontrovertible when presented systematically, and I can see my family struggling with the cognitive dissonance between their self-perception as fair parents and the documented reality of their differential treatment. The room fills with the uncomfortable weight of recognition, not the celebration kind, but the acknowledgement kind that comes when you're forced to see your own blind spots. Mom finally speaks, her voice quieter than before. We never meant to make you feel less important, Zara. We thought you were so confident and accomplished that you didn't need the same level of encouragement. What I needed, I say, closing my laptop, was to feel like my achievements mattered to the people who raised me. What I needed was to have my family be as proud of my national fellowship as they were of Darius's debate trophy. What I needed was to not have to build a research project to prove that I deserve equal recognition. The weeks following our family confrontation unfold like watching someone learn to walk after years of limping, awkward, deliberate, and occasionally painful to witness. My parents begin what can only be described as overcorrection therapy, showering me with the kind of attention that feels both validating and artificially constructed. Dad creates a LinkedIn post about my NSF fellowship that receives 43 likes and 12 congratulatory comments. Mom frames my fellowship certificate and hangs it in the hallway next to Darius's display. And both of them start asking detailed questions about my research with the enthusiasm of people following a prescribed treatment plan. The effort is genuine but exhausting. Every interaction feels loaded with their awareness of previous failures, turning normal family conversations into opportunities for them to demonstrate their newfound appreciation for my achievements. When I mention presenting my research at the International Conference on Machine Learning, Mom immediately suggests throwing a pre-conference celebration dinner and starts texting relatives about my upcoming presentation. The response feels disproportionate to the news, like emotional pendulum swinging from neglect to overcompensation. Darius handles the adjustment period with characteristic self-absorption, seemingly relieved that family attention has shifted away from his achievements while missing the larger implications of what our confrontation revealed. During our first one-on-one conversation since the family meeting, he admits that he never really thought about it when it came to the different ways our successes were celebrated. "I guess I just assumed you didn't care about that stuff," he says, stirring sugar into his coffee at the Midtown Cafe where we've met for lunch. "You've always been so focused on your research and career goals, family celebrations seemed like they weren't your priority." Sasomu, the admission reveals how thoroughly my emotional needs have been misinterpreted by my own family. My focus on academic excellence wasn't evidence that I didn't value recognition. It was compensation for not receiving it. I'd learned to seek validation from professors, conference organizers, and professional peers, because those were the only sources that consistently acknowledged my achievements. "The reason I became so focused on external recognition," I explained to Darius, "is because I couldn't get consistent recognition at home. When your family doesn't celebrate your achievements, you learn to find that validation elsewhere." He nods slowly, perhaps understanding for the first time that my academic drive wasn't natural independence but learned self-reliance. "I'm sorry, Zara. I really didn't realize. I thought you were just different that way." The conversation helps, but what provides deeper healing is the response from my professional network when I finally share my family situation with trusted colleagues. Dr. Martinez, my graduate advisor, listens to my story with the expression of someone who has witnessed similar dynamics before. "Unfortunately, what you've experienced isn't uncommon, especially for women in STEM fields," he tells me during one of our regular research meetings. Families often struggle to understand and celebrate achievements in technical fields, particularly when those achievements come from daughters who are expected to prioritize relationships over careers. His validation helps me understand that my family's behavior wasn't a reflection of my worth, but a manifestation of their own unconscious biases about gender, achievement, and family dynamics. The NSF Fellowship wasn't less meaningful because they initially ignored it. It was extraordinary, regardless of their response. The real transformation happens when I start building a chosen family of colleagues, mentors, and friends who understand the significance of my work and celebrate my achievements without prompting or education. When I receive my acceptance letter to MIT's doctoral program, the response from my professional network is immediate and overwhelming. Congratulatory emails, offers to connect me with researchers at MIT, and genuine excitement about my research potential. Marcus from work organizes the celebration dinner he promised months ago, inviting colleagues who ask detailed questions about my research and express genuine interest in my academic journey. Dr. Martinez connects me with his MIT contacts and spends an hour discussing my research goals for the doctoral program. Jennifer, a fellow data scientist I've become friends with, sends me a congratulatory bouquet with a note that reads, "For someone who's about to change the world with machine learning." The contrast between these organic celebrations and my family's recent forced enthusiasm helps me understand what authentic recognition feels like. It's not about the size of the celebration or the number of social media posts. It's about having people who understand the significance of your achievements and celebrate them because they value who you are, not because they're trying to correct past mistakes. When my parents call to discuss plans for my MIT send-off party, I feel grateful for their effort while maintaining realistic expectations about their ability to provide the kind of recognition I've learned I deserve. They're trying, and that matters. But I've also learned that I don't need their validation to know my worth. The documentation project that started as evidence gathering has evolved into something more valuable, proof that I can recognize patterns, advocate for myself, and build relationships with people who see my value clearly from the beginning. A year later, I'm standing in my new office at MIT, surrounded by boxes that contain not just my research materials and personal belongings, but physical evidence of the transformation that began with a single ignored fellowship announcement. The walls are bare, waiting for the diplomas, certificates, and research awards I finally learned to display proudly. The morning sunlight streams through windows that overlook the Charles River, and I can hear the excited chatter of new graduate students in the hallway, people who will become my chosen academic family over the next 4 years. My phone buzzes with a text from Mom. Saw the MIT article about your research team's AI breakthrough online. So proud of you. Dad shared it on Facebook and LinkedIn. Call us when you have time. We want to hear all about it. The message makes me smile, not because their recognition validates my achievement, but because it represents their genuine growth and my own healthy boundaries around what I need from family relationships. The research breakthrough she's referring to, a machine learning algorithm that could revolutionize healthcare diagnostics, represents exactly the kind of work I dreamed about during those lonely moments in my parents' kitchen, holding my NSF letter while listening to champagne toasts for debate trophies. The achievement has generated coverage in 3 major publications, congratulations from researchers worldwide, and yes, immediate and enthusiastic celebration from my family. But more importantly, it's generated the deep satisfaction that comes from work that matters, pursued by someone who finally understands her own worth. Darius calls that afternoon while I'm organizing my new lab space. Zara, I just read the article about your research team. This is incredible. You're basically helping create the future of medicine. His enthusiasm feels authentic rather than obligatory, and when he asks follow-up questions about the technical details, I can tell he's actually listening to the answers. Thanks, Darius. It feels good to finally be working on research that could have real-world impact. I pause, looking at the photo I've placed on my desk, not a family photo, but a picture from my MIT welcome reception, surrounded by fellow researchers who understood the significance of my work before I had to explain it. Can I ask you something? Darius's voice takes on a more serious tone. Looking back on our family dynamics, do you think things would have been different if I had been more aware of how achievements were being celebrated? Like, should I have said something when I noticed the differences? The question surprises me with its thoughtfulness. A year ago, I would have wanted him to acknowledge responsibility for accepting preferential treatment. Now, I understand that expecting children to recognize and correct parental favoritism isn't realistic. We all operated within the system we were given, and the important thing is that we're all capable of growth. I think the most important thing is that we all recognize the patterns now, I tell him, and that we're committed to doing better in our own relationships going forward. The conversation ends with him expressing genuine excitement about visiting my lab during his next trip to Boston, and for the first time in years, I look forward to showing a family member around my professional environment without having to explain why my work matters. That evening, I attend a welcome dinner with my new research cohort, surrounded by brilliant minds who discuss machine learning algorithms and healthcare applications with the same passion my family once reserved for debate competitions. Dr. Sarah Chen, my new advisor, introduces me to the group by describing my previous research and the potential impact of my dissertation project. The introduction takes 5 minutes and includes specific details about my methodological innovations and theoretical contributions. Listening to her speak, I realize this is what recognition sounds like when it comes from people who truly understand your field and value your contributions. It's not about the length of the introduction or the enthusiasm in her voice. It's about the accuracy of her description and the respect evident in how she presents my work to peers. Later that night, as I organize research papers in my apartment near campus, I come across the documentation folder that started this entire journey. The screenshots of family conversations, the celebration timeline spreadsheets, the social media analysis, all evidence of a young woman who had to prove her own worth because the people who raised her couldn't see it clearly. I don't delete the folder, but I move it to an archive directory. It represents an important chapter in learning to advocate for myself, but it's no longer the active story of my life. The active story now involves research that could help save lives, colleagues who celebrate intellectual rigor, and family relationships that have evolved into something healthier because I was willing to demand better. When did you stop waiting for other people to recognize your brilliance and start building a life where your achievements speak for themselves? For me, it was the moment I realized that the applause I'd been seeking from the wrong audience was drowning out the standing ovation I deserved from people who actually understood the performance.